after the uprising of George Floyd, so much of the country has stopped even delivering lip service to Black folks and Black communities about racial justice and our safety, and tough on crime politics have returned with a vengeance. We're holding excitement, though, that progressive economic policies have become mainstream in the Democratic Party. And we're also holding anger at the continued demonization of immigrants by Republicans and the embrace of failed enforcement-only and militarized approaches to immigration by so many Democrats. And as we approach the one-year anniversary of the attacks of October 7th and the beginning of the siege of Gaza, we are also holding deep pain, horror, and anger at what we've seen not only on that day, but in nearly every day since. And we want our leaders to do much, much better. We also recognize the disturbing threat of political violence in the news, with reports of a shooting on Donald Trump's golf course in Florida and threats of violence against the Haitian community in Springfield, Ohio, spurred on by J.D. Vance and Donald Trump's racist conspiracy theories that target immigrant communities. There's room for all of that, the frustration and the excitement, the anger and the hope. And there has to be. While we don't have to agree on everything amongst ourselves, and we don't have to agree with everything the Harris campaign has been doing either, we do have to keep our eyes on the prize. We must build the broadest coalition possible to defeat Trump in order to continue building the future we dream of for ourselves and for future generations. So tonight, we're here to hear from some amazing and inspiring leaders from across our Jewish community and across this country. And this is all for the purpose of each of us getting motivated and committing to taking action. And we have 2 action steps for you to take tonight. Links are going to be on your screen, and they're also going to be in the chat, and I'm going to talk about them now. 1, sign up to volunteer to reach out to voters in critical states and critical races for the Harris campaign and for congressional candidates, because all 3, the presidency, the House, and the Senate, are all on a knife's edge, and they could go either way, and will be determined not by the margin of error that you hear about when we talk about polls, but rather by the margin of effort, the work that we do over the next 51 days. 2, contribute your financial resources. Campaigns are expensive, and they just get more and more expensive every year. Bend the Arc Jewish Action PAC brings progressive Jewish financial resources to campaigns across the country. The link below is going to take you to a page where you can split a donation to the Harris campaign and to Bend the Arc PAC. But you can distribute that money however you like, including giving directly to congressional candidates through our PAC, which makes it clear that you are donating as a progressive Jew. And related to that, before we get started, I have a challenge. We would love to raise $10,000 for Kamala Harris and our slate of progressive candidates running in the most critical races. And if every person here gave $18, $36, or whatever you feel compelled to give, or whatever is meaningful to you, we could make that goal happen tonight. Go to bendthearc.us/Kamala to donate to her campaign and to all the progressive candidates we are supporting down the ballot. So with that, let's get started. You're going to hear me say, my friend, my teacher, my friend and teacher a lot tonight. Some great people that I'm truly honored to have in my life, and we are lucky to have as leaders in our Jewish community. And I'm delighted to welcome Rabbi Sharon Brous, the senior and founding rabbi of IKAR, a community built in 2004 that has become a model for Jewish revitalization in the US and beyond. Named one of the United States' most influential rabbis, she spoke beautifully at the DNC in Chicago this year and just released an amazing book that's sitting on my table. I finished it just a couple of months ago, The Amen Effect, Ancient Wisdom to Mend Our Broken Hearts and World. Rabbi Brous?
Thank you, Ginna. I'm so honored to be with you and with this whole beautiful community today. I want to offer just a couple of words as we launch into our evening together. This is a political movement, one that we know has the potential to be transformative for the nation, and that's already precedent setting. But my assumption is that everyone who's here with us tonight understands exactly what's at stake politically in the upcoming election. What I want to spend a couple of minutes turning our attention to instead is the spiritual shift, the culture shift that this moment and this election demands of us. In our politics today, and across the nation is really a battle between two different ways of looking at the world, a choice between an ethic of inevitability and an ethic of imagination. A politics that's rooted in the ethic of inevitability counts on us despairing of the possibility of a better future, despairing of the possibility of peace, despairing of the possibility of a just society. Instead, it plays on our worst instincts, the smallness, the fear, the ever-present sense of scarcity, and it undermines our power, which tees us up for tyrannical rule. In a culture that obviates our own agency, we are deeply vulnerable to extremism, and we are primed for totalitarianism. The ethic of inevitability relieves us of the duty of self-reflection, of creativity, and of imagination. These things are our birthright. But the ethic of inevitability responds to hurt with hate and says, it's not my responsibility, it's not my fault, it's your fault, it's someone else's fault. It thrives on the battle between us versus them. It plays into all of our worst feelings about ourselves, our country, and each other. But the other side is the ethic of imagination, which looks at the world with a sense of creativity and possibility, with an open heart. It even looks at what's broken, looking at the cracks and the fissures, and asks with some kind of open-hearted determination, how did we get stuck here? And what do we need to do to get out? As Jews, we understand the ethic of imagination because Torah teaches us that the greatest expression of human freedom is the ability to deny inevitability and to defy expectations and to believe that we can create a new reality for ourselves. So now our work today and every day ahead until this election and then beyond is to defy the politics of inevitability at all costs. We know from thousands of years of our Jewish tradition that there is no such thing as the inevitable, that it only seems inevitable until someone emerges who offers us another way. And that's exactly what we saw this summer here in the United States. That is what we're witnessing in Israel right now, as hundreds of thousands of people desperate to see a third way are taking to the streets en masse week after week, desperate for a new path, for another way. When we engage our friends and our family in the days ahead who are ambivalent about this election, let's help them remember what is at stake. Let's speak to them about reproductive freedom and economic opportunity and racial justice and climate justice. Let's remind them that a weak American democracy will never be able to strengthen and support Israeli democracy. And let us make sure that they understand how much harder it will be for peace to ever be achieved under that kind of regime here in the United States. And perhaps most importantly, let's help them see that before us today, there is one candidate who's responding to the callousness and cruelty of the inevitability ethic with a new landscape of hope, a reshaping of our political culture in which we're actually able to see one another as partners in the work of building a more just and equitable and peaceful society. That is what we need here in the United States. That is what is needed in Israel, and that is what is needed throughout the world. Now, all of us must do everything in our power to help that become a reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi Brous. There is no such thing as inevitable, which is why we're all here tonight. And I am delighted now to introduce our next speaker. Representative Jamie Raskin has represented Maryland's 8th Congressional District since 2017. He's a professor of constitutional law, which has been crucial to his leadership in Congress. Representative Raskin was the lead impeachment manager in the second impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump and served on the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. Representative Raskin.
Thank you so much for your lovely introduction. Thanks for inviting me to join you. I was listening to Rabbi Brous talk about inevitability, and it reminded me of my very first campaign when I ran for the state Senate. And I ran because there was an incumbent who'd been in for 32 years who was championing the death penalty, blockading marriage equality, and it introduced a pro-Iraq war resolution. So I announced I was going to run for state Senate, and my local paper wrote an article about the race, quoting a pundit who said Raskin's chances of victory are considered impossible. And 9 months later, we got 67% of the vote. And the Washington Post then had another article quoting a pundit who said Raskin's victory was inevitable. So I went from impossible to inevitable in 9 months because the pundits are never wrong. But we like to teach the young people in our Democracy Summer Project that in politics, nothing is impossible and nothing's inevitable. It's only possible through the democratic arts of education and organizing and mobilizing people for change. And we're seeing that take place in this election, where when it was said just 3 months ago, it would be impossible for the Democrats to beat Donald Trump. Some people feel like it's inevitable we're going to beat Donald Trump. It's not inevitable. It's definitely not impossible. The wind is at our back and we're picking up huge momentum, but we need everybody engaged every single day for the next 51 days to make this happen. I want also to agree that we're in the fight of our lives here for the future of liberal democracy. And, all over the world, the dictators and the despots are siding with Donald Trump against Kamala Harris and against the Democrats. So we've got the autocrats in Moscow, we've got the kleptocrats and the plutocrats in Mar-a-Lago, we've got the theocrats in MAGA with Mike Johnson, all of them lined up together against the Democrats. And this will be the election which really decides the future of American politics and government for probably the rest of this century. And so we really dare not fail here. Sometimes my Republican colleagues have a problem correctly pronouncing the name of our political party in its adjectival form. So one of my colleagues will get up, like right now I'm in Pennsylvania campaigning with my friend Madeline Dean, but she'll get up, she'll make a speech, and then the Republicans will get up and they say, well, that Democrat Congresswoman with her Democrat bill and her Democrat amendment. And so for 7 years, I had sort of gentlemanly-ish gotten up. I said, well, Democrat is the noun, okay? Democratic is the adjective. You've got to say the Democratic Congresswoman with the Democratic bill, the Democratic amendment, and they keep doing it. And I did that one day. You can see this one on YouTube with Lauren Boebert. And so they started doing more Democrat this and Democrat that. All of them were piling on, Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan. And so I lost my temper and I said, you guys have this self-imposed political speech tick. And now it's spreading over to my side. Now, whenever I try to say the name of your party, it just comes out the Banana Republican Party with the Banana Republican Congressman, the Banana Republican bill. And so I went home and I told my wife, I said, Sarah, I finally got them back after all this time. And she said it was an extremely immature response. All right. And luckily, I was reading a great book at the time called Traitor to His Class about Franklin D. Roosevelt by the historian H.W. Brands. And I learned something remarkable from the book because it's got Roosevelt's speeches in it. Roosevelt did not call our party the Democratic Party, much less the Democrat Party. He called us with a capital D, the democracy. The democracy. So he'd say the economic royalists and the plutocrats say you invest in the very wealthiest people in society and some of the wealth will magically dribble down on everybody else. But the democracy says you invest in the great American working middle class, we will all rise and prosper together. So now when they can't say the name of our party, I just say, do what FDR and Eleanor Roosevelt did, just call us the democracy. Because that's what we are. We're the only party in America right now that will defend everybody's right to vote, even if they're not going to vote for us. We're not out there trying to suppress the vote and disenfranchise people and prevent people from registering, because we're the party of democracy. And we believe in trying to win elections by advancing policy platforms that appeal to the most number of people and then getting them out to vote. The political scientists have told us what the hallmark characteristics are of a fascist political party. One, they don't accept the outcome of democratic elections that don't go their way. Two, they embrace or they refuse to disavow political violence as an instrument for obtaining political power and maintaining political power. Three is they're organized as a cult of personality around a charismatic or allegedly charismatic figure. And four, rather than advance policy ideas that can be debated freely in a democratic fashion, they engage in scapegoating and stereotyping and racism and anti-Semitism and gay bashing and immigrant bashing. And so they all got mad at our great president, Joe Biden, when he said that there were semi-fascist currents running through the Republican Party. But I'm sorry, if the shoe semi-fits, you semi-wear it. They've created that. They've taken Lincoln's party, which was a party of freedom, of union, anti-know-nothing, anti-conspiracy theory, and they've reduced it to an authoritarian cult of personality. And we know that means danger for everybody. You know, Elie Wiesel used to say, you know, it starts with anti-Semitism, but it doesn't end with anti-Semitism. And you look what happened in Nazi Germany. It started that way, but it was about the obliteration of labor, the attack on gay people, the attack on gypsies, imperialism throughout the world. It wasn't just about the Jews. So I think that racism and anti-Semitism are the gateway to destruction of liberal democracy. And so we have to mount a defense of the Jewish community that is part of a larger defense of liberal democracy generally, which is under attack today. And so people all over the world, especially in Ukraine, are counting on us right now to stand up strong for democracy. So I'll leave you with this little mnemonic device that I've worked on with the students in Democracy Summer, which is the project we have that put more than 1,000 high school and college kids out into the field fighting for strong democracy and freedom in America in the summer. But we tell the kids, you teach your brothers and your sisters, you teach everybody you know, especially when they get to age around 16 or 17, when they're ready to drive, okay? Everything you need to know about voting is everything you need to know about driving. If you want to go forward, you put it in D, and if you want to go backwards, you put it in R. That's all you need to know for 2024. Thank you, Ben the Ark, for everything you're doing to uphold the highest values of Judaism and the highest values of Western liberal democracy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Rabbi Brous quoted such a core piece of what you just shared about racism and anti-Semitism being the gateway to the destruction of democracy. And you ended with the mnemonic that I'm definitely going to be taking out into the world after I leave here. Alysia Reiner is up next. This brings me I'm super excited to get to introduce her to you tonight. She's an actress, an activist, a producer, and an eco mama. I love that. I might not be as eco enough as you, so I might not be able to take it on myself, but I kind of like it. Who uses her superpowers for good. We know her from Orange is the New Black and How to Get Away with Murder, and she's also a fierce advocate for women's rights and climate change. Well, not for climate change issues. We don't advocate for it. We're trying to fight it. Alysia, what's up?
Hi, guys. First of all, thank you so much, Ben the Ark, for having me with all of these incredible Jewish leaders and for all you have done for decades. I'm a huge follower and fan of Ben the Ark, and it makes me, the work you do makes me proud to be Jewish, and it's very much what I espouse in my Judaism, so thank you. I am not a leader or a teacher or a politician. I'm an actress, and my life's work is imagination. And so I was inspired just before this to lead you all through a little imagination visualization together. Now, I promise not to get too woo-woo. My 15-year-old is right over there, and she will roll her eyes if I do. But just before this, I was watching a workout. It was a Vimeo recording of a workout that we did during COVID with one of my favorite teachers. And during the video, Biden was declared. And the joy we all felt, Baruch Hashem, it was like the most joyous relief. And So I invite all of you at this moment together to go to the joy we will all feel when Harris is declared. I actually wore a t-shirt today. I don't know if you can see it. It says, "Joy is an act of resistance." I am part of a chorus called the Resistance Revival Chorus, and we believe that joy is an act of resistance. So I invite you to go to that joy right now of what it will be like when she is declared, and like really feel it in every cell of your body. Okay, now what do we got to do to get there? Like, that's the really big question, right? And as a Jewish woman, that means action. What does an act of faith look like to you? I cannot tell you what that looks like to you, but I can tell you what that looks like for me, what I commit to all of you that I have done and will continue to do. I am going to donate, because we all know that there are so many smear campaigns out there, right? I am going to write letters. I have written many letters. I am going to make calls. I have written I have made a lot of calls. I am going to go to swing states. I am going to help people register and make sure that everyone who legally can gets to cast their vote and it is counted. And I am going to take actions from love and joy, not fear. I am not going to gossip. I am going to focus on moving forward. That is what our future leader talks about, moving forward. That's what we saw in that debate. Not going there, but moving forward. When they go low, we go high. We move forward. So I invite you today together to move forward with joy and take the actions needed as Jewish humans to make that happen. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all the amazing actions I know you're gonna take in the next, how many days is it now?
51.
51. And please, I'm on all the socials. Feel free to reach out to me and tell me what action you took. And I promise to celebrate all of your actions, because that's how we're gonna get there. So thank you so much.
Alysia, thank you. You rattled off a list of things that it was like bam, 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 that everybody can do. Thank you so much. And I don't know if the amazing team at Bend the Ark knew that Raven, who is like one of the bringers of joy on the internet, on Instagram that I follow, she's not my friend yet, but she's definitely my teacher. And so I'm delighted to introduce her tonight for our next speaker. Raven Schwam-Curtis is a Black and Jewish Gen Z public intellectual and activist who educates an audience of 220,000 plus followers across social media. I follow her on Insta. Raven, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for a very, very warm welcome. And hello, everyone. My name is Raven Schwam-Curtis, and I'm truly honored to be here today at the Jews for Kamala rally. You know, as a Gen Z, Black, Jewish, and queer woman who is deeply passionate about advocacy and education, my work as a content creator focuses on amplifying the voices of historically subjugated communities and challenging systems that threaten our collective liberation. Today, we stand at a historical crossroads, and I want to share with you why this election matters so deeply, not just for me, not just for us as Jews, but for the future of our country. The truth is, the upcoming election is about more than candidates or political parties. It's about survival. Project 2025 lays out an authoritarian agenda that threatens the safety of our communities and the very fabric of this thing we're continually aspiring towards called democracy. Make no mistake, white supremacy, anti-Semitism, authoritarianism, these are all woven into this dangerous vision for the United States. Trump's MAGA movement seeks to silence the voices of those of us who dare to imagine a better, more expansive world, especially those of us who live at the intersection of multiple identities. As a Jewish community, we cannot afford to stay silent on these issues and to sit on the sidelines. The rise of white nationalism and Christian nationalism and the violence that comes with them doesn't just endanger our community. It endangers Black folks, LGBTQ+ folks, people who are immigrants, and so many others who are already deeply vulnerable. Our safety is tied to the safety of all communities on the margins and the intersections therein, which necessarily means we cannot get free in silos because we're all free or none of us are free. One of the things I love most about being Jewish is our capaciousness and our diversity. We are a people who span many inhabitations of race, ethnicity, gender, nationality, and so forth. I think this is one of our many strengths. And just like the rest of this country, we're impacted by the same issues: climate change, economic inequality, the fight for reproductive rights, and of course, voting rights. These are not just American issues, they are Jewish issues. The fight for justice, equity, and dignity for all people is woven into our histories, our traditions, and our stories. We are inspired by our ancestors and elders who fought for civil rights, who marched for women's rights, and stood up for laborers. We draw strength from the Exodus story, a story of liberation from oppression, of finding hope and freedom even in the hardest times. We are taught that every human being is created, B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God, deserving of dignity and justice. These values are not just part of our community ethos, they are the foundation of our progressive vision for the future. And this is where Kamala Harris and the broader progressive movement come in. This election really isn't just a fight to win the White House. It's about securing a future wherein we can continue to strive towards the promise of democracy at every level: the presidency, the Senate, the House, and local governments. We need leaders who will fight for what their constituents want for themselves, not leaders who forcibly impose Christian nationalist agendas that endanger our collective access to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Elections are just one tool in our toolbox to build a more equitable future, but they are a powerful one. We cannot afford to be complacent. We cannot afford to stay silent. We must make a plan to vote, talk to our friends and family, and mobilize our communities, especially in swing states. This is how we win. Pericles, a Greek politician, very famously and powerfully said, quote, "Just because you do not take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you." So many young people are feeling disillusioned with capital G government, and I would argue for good reason. Gen Z and Gen Alpha are inheriting a world rifled with many woes. We're confronting the ongoing crisis in Gaza, the unbearable suffering of our Palestinian siblings, and grieving the horrors of watching our beloved mishpacha continue to be held hostage or stolen from us violently. We're witnessing the hottest summers on record as climate change is further exacerbated. We're watching the histories of BIPOC communities be demonized and barred from classrooms. And we're being forced to endure the ongoing attacks on the LGBTQ+ community with 500+ pieces of anti-LGBTQ+ legislation introduced to state legislatures just last year. A community, by the way, to which nearly 30% of Gen Z belongs. We've grown up in a state of constant terror, constant anxiety, as the prevalence of school shootings continues to become more commonplace, and we are forced to watch our peers be mowed down before our very eyes. Frankly, we have a lot to be furious about. We have good reason to be disillusioned, and I'm of the belief that voting is a form of harm mitigation, and I'm of the belief that in order to create a better world, the kind of world we deserve, we must create conditions under which we can continue to dissent and organize. And I believe fervently we will be able to do that work under Kamala Harris's tutelage. So tonight, I'm asking you to step up, get involved, vote, volunteer, support progressive organizations like Bend the Arc. Our work doesn't really stop at the ballot box. This is a long haul fight, but our future depends on what we do in these next few weeks. Together, with Jewish wisdom as our guide and justice as our mission, we can build a future that rejects hate, that embraces dignity for all, and that promises a better tomorrow. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very honored and so happy to be here in community.
Thank you so much, Raven. Jewish wisdom as our guide and justice as our vision. I know Senator Schatz is tremendous, and yet I still wouldn't want to follow that. Senator Schatz is Hawaii's senior United States Senator. Since joining the Senate, he has focused his work on helping workers, veterans, and families, and has led key legislation on healthcare, climate change, and technology. He has been a true champion in an effort to end the transfer of military weapons to local police, one of the issues that's really crucial in Ben the ARC's work. Thank you so much for your leadership on that. And Senator Schatz, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. I could not be more thrilled and more honored to be a part of this. Rabbi, if you're still on it, I just finished your book and found it incredibly inspiring. Jamie Raskin, of course, is everybody's hero, mine as well. Thank you to everybody, Raven and others who are part of this movement. It is a tough time. This last week, I found myself infuriated more than usual about what was happening in Springfield. And I consider tonight an opportunity for us, all of us as Jews, to recommit to the idea that injustice anywhere is our obligation to try to remedy. You know, there's the ILWU, the private sector union that helped to lead the democratic revolution in the state of Hawaii, has a slogan, and it is, an injury to one is an injury to all. And I think about what's happening in Springfield, and I feel deep solidarity and outrage and fury and frustration and pain about what's happening. But my recommendation to you is, do not let all of those feelings turn into despair. Our political opponents, our ideological opponents want us to fall into despair. Be angry, but let that anger turn into action. And so this is a campaign meeting. This is a kind of spiritual convening in a certain way, but it is, in fact, for a very specific purpose, which is to get more votes than the other side. And so if you'll permit me a very quick story, I came out of it's in 1998, I came out of my primary. I was 25 years old, and I was running for the state house, and I had pretty weak numbers. And a friend and mentor of mine looked at the numbers and said, let's assume you're roughly 700 votes behind and you've got roughly 60 days left. That means you have to win over roughly 12 people per day. Let's assume for every 4 people you talk to, you win over 1. And so every day go and talk to 48 people and have individual conversations, and understand that you're not going to flip that many votes, but once in a while you're going to flip a vote or two. And lacking any other political strategy to get across the finish line, I did exactly what I was told. I talked to everybody that I possibly could, and I ended up winning by 425 votes. And I want us all to replicate that. I want us all, whenever we feel anxious and we, press refresh on Twitter or Instagram or the New York Times website to see what the latest take all of that anxiety and turn it into action. Talk to your fellow congregants, talk to your coworkers, talk to your family members. A buddy of mine used to say, politics is uncomfortable conversations among friends. And that's what we're going to have to do. We cannot let the other side, and I have seen this especially in the United States Senate, define Judaism or our Jewishness for us. Our Judaism and our Jewishness is ours. It is a Judaism and a Jewishness that cares about everybody, that understands that kindness is not weakness, and that is always, always, always pushing for a better future. But the way to do that now is not particularly complicated. It is send money. It is knock on doors. It is make phone calls. It is talk to people who will listen to you about the election. This really is the most important thing that we can be doing for Jewish values for the next month and a half. And I am so proud to play a small role in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator, for those words. We're not going to let anybody define our Judaism or our Jewishness. Not today, not this election, not the future. So thank you for naming that and saying that again. That's exactly why we're here today in this formation, to do Jewish the way we know we want to do it. Thank you so much. Rabbi Jason Kimelman-Block, y'all. So like Jason and I used to work together. He is my friend and teacher. It applies to him. He also did not put his bio in my script, so I get to say whatever I want, which is, I'm super excited to hear from you. I always like to see you in the Zoom square. Rabbi, welcome to the stage.
Thanks so much, Ginna. And thanks to everyone who's spoken tonight. And thanks to the hundreds and hundreds of people from across the country, progressive Jews and allies, to come here in community, to get the fortitude and inspiration to do what it takes between now and Election Day, to leave it all on the table and have no regrets. There's 51 days until Election Day, and early voting in Pennsylvania starts tomorrow morning. So this is a critical time, not only for this election, but it's a critical juncture in the history of the United States. Many of us have things we'd like to see the Harris campaign do better on, and we will push her, but we can only do that if she wins. If Trump wins, we're in a completely different, not just different territory, we're in a different planet, essentially. So a little bit of advice for you as we go into these last 51 days. Don't watch the polls. Don't read those articles. Don't kind of pay attention to that, because being a poll watcher, not an election day poll watcher, that would be a good thing. But if you're someone who's constantly looking at the polls, constantly looking at the prediction markets, you're putting yourself in a spectator position where you're essentially rooting for your team. And this election is so close. We know that. We don't need more information. And what that means is we are going to need every single person's effort. And we're going to need everyone to stretch. And for many of us across the country, stretching simply means voting. There are a lot of people that don't vote in every election. And so if you know people like that, we're going to ask them to stretch and make sure that they take the time to be sure that they can vote. But I think for most of the leaders, if not all the leaders on this call, stretching doesn't mean voting. It means something much more. So I'd like each of us to think about, what does stretching mean for you? How many shifts can you volunteer between now and Election Day? How many doors would you like to knock on? How many conversations do you want to have? How many calls can you make? How many conversations can you have with your friends and relatives to encourage them to also think about how they can stretch? Are there people who could contribute more financial resources to groups that are getting out to the vote or campaigns that need it? And this isn't just about the presidency, although that is crucial. That the House is on a knife's edge. It is very possible that Democrats could take back the House, and the Senate is on a knife's edge as well, and has been. And there is a chance that the Democrats could hold on to the Senate this year. And if they do, that would be a Democratic Senate without Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, and the ability to actually get things done that we were not able to do in the first 2 years of the Biden administration. So the stakes are just incredibly high. And there's no margin of error. The polls all have margin of error. What we have until Election Day is just a margin of effort. So every time you're tempted to read an article about what's going to happen, here's what I predict, put that article aside. They don't know. Take that energy and put your time into making the result that you want actually happen. And so one way we ask you to do that is to, you can donate to the Kamala campaign and to a number of amazing congressional candidates at the link you see there. And then you can take action at JewsForKamala.com. If you click more, there will be opportunities beyond the presidential to congressional races as well. So thanks so much, and really looking forward to us all making this result happen together.
Thank you so much, Jason, for that call to action. I'm really excited to welcome, I get to say it again, my friend and teacher, Leah Greenberg, who is the co-founder and co-executive director of Indivisible, She is co-author of We Are Indivisible, A Blueprint for Democracy After Trump, published in 2019, the same year that she and her professional and life partner, Ezra Levin, were named as one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. Leah, hello, welcome.
Hi there, so glad to be here tonight. Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be with you. We are at a crossroads in American history, and the things that we do over the next, I can't count, I've lost count of the days, but 50 something days are going to determine the future that we are in. We could be in a future, and it is like not that far away. We could be in a future next January where we are watching a historic president take office, where we are welcoming the first Black woman and South Asian woman into the presidency, and the first gentleman who will be a Jewish man. We could be in a future where we are passing a national guarantee of reproductive freedom, where we are passing voting rights and structural democracy reform that ensure that everyone's votes are counted and that voters choose their politicians and politicians do not choose their voters, and where we are making our economy more fair for everyone. That is one world that we could be in, or we could be in the world of Project 2025, of abortion bans and cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, of the dissolution of things that we depend on for our quality of life, like the Department of Education and the entities that regulate and ensure that we have clean air and clean water, of an empowered imperial presidency helmed by Donald Trump with none of the checks and balances that are supposed to keep us safe from a would-be autocrat, a would-be fascist. These are all Jewish issues. Control of our bodies and reproductive freedom is a Jewish issue. A real democracy where everyone's vote counts is a Jewish issue. The social safety net is a Jewish issue. Autocracy, fascism, stopping them. These are Jewish issues. And so I am here and I'm for Kamala because she is for us. And I am here and I'm for Kamala because Donald Trump is a threat to all of us and to all we care about. For the last 8 years, we have watched as one party has been fully captured by right-wing white nationalists. And I could filibuster for the rest of the night and just take over the entire time and have no time for anyone else if I was just going to cover all of Donald Trump's cynical hate mongering and all of his anti-Semitic attacks. We could spend all of tonight talking about Charlottesville, about very fine people on both sides. We could spend all of tonight talking about the direct connection between Great Replacement theory and Donald Trump's hate mongering about immigrant caravans and the deadliest attack on any Jewish community in America, the shooting at the Tree of Life, all of which are so tightly connected. We could talk about his neo-Nazi buddies like Nick Fuentes, his white nationalist vigilante followers like the Proud Boys. We could talk about how he is completely incapable of saying like 3 sentences about American Jews without invoking tropes about Jewish loyalty and, how great we are with money. Like literally the man cannot make it through a speech in which he talks to Jewish people without saying these things. Not that I've got any feelings about that. But we could go on about that for a long time. Now, we know that there are some folks who sometimes say that our path to safety is reaching an accommodation with the powers that be, that maybe if we, say both sides enough, both sides are the problem. And maybe if we give an award to some of the fascists, that might help to keep us safe, but that's never kept us safe. That has never been the path to safety for us. We know from painful experience that when a political movement embraces white nationalism, it's a threat to our values and our neighbors and ultimately a threat to us. We know when Donald Trump and J.D. Vance spread blood libels about Haitian immigrants, that's a blood libel. We recognize it. It's a threat to our values, our neighbors, ultimately a threat to us. When people start trying to redefine what citizenship is, who belongs here, who really counts, who should have the right to vote, that is a threat to our values, our neighbors, and ultimately a threat to us. We know what's going to keep us safe is building together with everyone who wants a multiracial, pluralistic democracy, a world where our safety isn't in tension with anyone else's, but is guaranteed because everyone is safe, because we want the same things, right? We want to be free. We want to be safe. We want a better life, and we want a better life for our kids. And that's who I'm voting for when I think about why I'm here. I am voting for Kamala so that my kids grow up believing that it is the most natural thing in the world for a woman to be president, for a Black and South Asian woman to be president, for there to be an interfaith family with a first husband who's Jewish. And I'm voting for my kids because I want them to grow up in a country where they can be who they are, love who they want, control their bodies, and thrive because the rules are fair and everyone belongs. That is what we could have. That is what is on the horizon. There are forces who threaten us, who want to take us back, but we are not going back. And so that is why we are going to work every single day until the election to get our entire communities activated. Because here's the thing, this election could come down to just a few votes in a few key places. And the people there, you're on this call tonight, you are giving up your precious time on a Sunday night to talk about why this is important, to talk about why we are for Kamala Harris. And that means that you have this special gift that you are going to carry to other people, because the kinds of people we need to reach, the kind of coalition we need to build, that includes people who are still deciding whether they are going to bother to vote on election day, bother to return their mail-in ballots, whether they really, whether they are still torn between two different sides, whether they're thinking about a third party. Those kinds of people, they are often low trust voters. They are often somewhat disengaged. They are not spending their Sunday night on political commentary just for fun. They also tend to tune out the ads, right? Like they don't trust politicians, they don't trust ads, but they might trust a friend or a colleague or a neighbor or a fellow student. They might trust you. That means that you have an enormous amount of power over the course of the next 50 something days, because if you reach your network, if you are sharing with them what we know, which is that we have these two futures, we have a future of a promise and a future where we all can thrive. We have a future where we are facing the encroaching white nationalism, fascist movement. These are the two realities that we are choosing between, and the choice is coming up fast. And you have that power to bring that to as many people as possible. So from every day, from here until the election, ask yourself, who do I know? How many more doors can I knock? How many more or conversations can I have with voters? What can I do so that when the vote is called, I know that I did everything I could to realize that world for myself, for my family, for my kids, whatever is your why. Think about it now and think about how you're going to feel when the vote is called, and then think about what more you can do for the next 50 something days.
Leah, thank you so much for that. Senator Schatz a few minutes ago said that 48 was his number, right? He had to talk to 48 people. What's y'all's number? What's your number? How many people do y'all how many people can you talk to a day? How many people can you reach out to a day? That's the question.
That's the question. Gosh, let's see. How many people can I reach out to?
How many people could you? How many people could you, Leah Greenberg, the co-founder of Indivisible, how many people could you reach in a day?
I think it depends on the medium of reaching in a day. I think I can tell you that in a really, really dedicated day of canvassing, my step count, because I used to actually count my steps at this point, got up to something around 25,000, but I don't know how many conversations that turned into. That was my highest step count ever, just to be clear. I'm not that athletic, but so I know you can cover a lot of ground talking to voters, but I'm not sure I've ever quite counted how many I've talked to.
And we've got opportunities for folks to knock on doors, to send texts, to make calls. So there's all sorts of different ways that people can do this work. Thank you so much, Leah. It's been great to see you tonight. Next up, again, I get to say my friend and teacher, Michael Twitty. And the thing I love about Michael Twitty is that, yes, he's a culinarian, he's a historian, he's a chef, he's all these things, but he can talk about so much more than just food. And delighted that you are here today. But I'm still going to read the traditional bio that does, as you know, focus on the food a little bit. Michael Twitty is a culinary historian and independent scholar focusing on historic African-American food and folk culture and culinary traditions of historic Africa and her diaspora. His first book, The Cooking Gene, won 2 James Beard Awards, and his second book, Koshersoul, explores the cultural crossroads of Jewish and African diaspora cuisine and issues of memory, identity, and food. Reb Michael, you're coming on.
Okay, and let's not forget, first African-American to win a National Jewish Book Award. So we
Yes, I didn't forget.
We represent you in here.
You need to put that in the bio so that I can make sure I remember. Gets in there.
Well, I'm glad to it's been a long road. I'm a veteran Hebrew school teacher, Jewish religious school teacher, Orthodox, conservative, Reform, Reconstructionist, and independent Havara. If it's Jewish, I've taught over 1,000 kids in the DMV. That's where I have every one of my gray hairs, and I still love them. And now they're all grown. Shalom Achim. I'm going to be looking down and up. I almost never take notes, but because we have limited time, I have to rely on those notes to remember what I'm going to say. My off-script part is that I remember the eve of the inauguration as a Washingtonian and going to catch the train to Williamsburg, Virginia. And while I was on the way, my Uber was late because of all the nonsense and traffic. And as I got out of the Uber, I said to the driver, who was Muslim and from Africa, I said, "Assalamu alaikum," we say shalom aleichem. He says, "Oh, my brother." I said to my brother. And as we did that, some of the new regime people passed by. And what really terrified me was that I'm a Washingtonian. I'm used to different communities and constituencies come through, and some presidents make an effort to make a new world. And there's art and there's literature and there's a celebration of our culture that comes with that permeates the entire city. And it's culture for 4 years. And you really see the priorities and the interests of that administration expressed. Well, my introduction to the Trump administration back in 2017, when the cooking gene came out, was a group of people passed. I'm not going to repeat what they said, but they spat at us and they used the N-word and they used some other things to describe me as a gay man and talked about how demonic this other man's religion was in Judaism. I couldn't make that up if I tried. Got to Union Station, and there was a group of Latino students from Texas, and they were being insulted. And there's a group of women who coming for the March for Women's Rights at the time, and they were being insulted. And I said, this is chaos. I've never seen Washington, D.C., Union Station, the grounds of the National Mall look like this before. This is not what we want. This is not going to be okay. And it's double true for what's coming. You know, many of us are looking forward to Rosh Hashanah. In the term Shana is embedded both difference, change, and repetition. Which one do you want? Do you want things to stay the same or that old pattern? I mean, I don't know about you, but my fears about my cousins, the Haitian community, being treated a certain way, about fellow Jews we've seen this before. We've seen it going past the Tree of Life synagogue, where many of my friends grew up in Squirrel Hill and worshipped. It was just tragic to see, you know, this place of holiness turn into a place of morbid memory. We can't have any of this anymore for any of our communities. It doesn't matter if you're being accosted because of anti-Asian bias or anti-queer bias, or because you refuse as a white person to not be an abolitionist, to stand up for all Americans. We need a revolution and a renaissance. As creative people, as creators, this past decade has been stifling in terms of our ability to express ourselves, to be ourselves, and to enjoy some fresh air. You know, the Trump narrative in the news media takes up all other stories. How would you like to be bumped talking about Koshersoul 4 or 5 times? Because we got to talk about what Trump did today. Lazazel to Trump. Lazazel to my God. You know what I'm saying in Hebrew. That's not where we need to be. We need to be in a world where women have a right to their bodily autonomy, where we talk about poor people, not just working class and middle class, having justice. We need to be in a world where our history, which is Black history, is not burned out of the record, and Confederate idols are not worshipped like demons. We need a world where these things come to pass, where we are no longer caught in this rat race known as the Maca culture. We need a time of difference in our Shana, not a time of repetition of ways past that do us no good. Look, I want a White House where dosa and chai masala and collard greens and kugel and brisket and barbecue and rundown and jerk and festivals and challah share a table with hot dish. I don't know what else Minnesota got going on with hot dish and lutefisk, but you know what, baby, we'll put that on a separate table for those who feel brave enough to try them. but God bless Minnesota. I've been there many times. But the Harris-Walters administration, this is not about teams or being a partisan person. This is about who speaks to my soul, who speaks to my neshama. We need our ruach back again. You know, ruach isn't just the breath. Ruach isn't just change. Ruach is the very spirit of Hashem. You know, we need an opportunity to grow, to progress beyond. I am 47. I am tired of I'm tired of me as a Gen Xer telling millennial folks, Generation Z, all of them, I'm so sorry we didn't leave you a better world. I shouldn't be doing that because I had people from the boomer generation, the civil rights generation telling me, we left you a legacy. You best go vote. You best go get on your feet and walk your prayers. You best go do what you got to do. And I took that legacy up. I'm so sorry to the generations to come. But this is the opportunity to stop saying I'm sorry and start saying, let's work together, because all of our jobs to make a significant change, make Tikkun Olam, and get them in office. Donate like I've done, walk like I've done, vote like I'm going to do. And tell them folks in your family, the entire universe depends on it. The entire universe depends on it. So I want to thank Ben the Ark once again for tolerating my wordiness. But this is an opportunity that I could not pass up to share the feelings of my heart by Lev to everybody else, saying, look, we are sitting, I'm pleased to sit at the intersection of Jewish values and Torah, of the American civil religion, of the spirit of the African diaspora and the African Atlantic, to be a product of moral suasion and civil rights, to be a product of Southern tradition and heritage and queer liberation and fabulousness. But that can't survive if we don't do the common work. So Shana Tova in advance, and let's make this year to come something that only God, Father, Mother, and between could ever dream and imagine. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Shana Tova to you. And so you said we need a revolution and a renaissance, and then I also heard you say we need some ruach too. So you've got the alliterative benefit, revolution, renaissance, ruach. Let's bring it to win this. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Shana Tova to you, my dear.
Shana Tova.
And have, again, friend and teacher, and she's probably going to like blush, and I don't know if she'll do this or not, but the legendary Heather Booth is here. See, I knew she was going to do that when I said it, but it's true. Heather has been a civil rights activist, a feminist, and political strategist for decades, from being a volunteer in Freedom Summer in Mississippi to founding the Midwest Academy to the NAACP National Voter Fund to far too many campaigns to name. But let's just say that Heather has played a role in nearly every campaign for justice that you can think of and ones that you can't. She is currently the Progressive Outreach Director for the Harris campaign, and she's been a friend to Ben the Ark for many, many years. And we are so honored to hear from her tonight. Heather.
Well, Ginna, you are really a joy. And all of you who are Zooming in tonight, you're the people whose understanding of Jewish values drive us in this work to repair the world. You are the organizers, the advocates, the change makers, the good troublemakers, as John Lewis said. It's a reason that I first connected with Ben the Ark when it was just beginning. I was part of the 4th cohort of Sela, the Jewish leadership training that you sponsored, and was grateful for it. When I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, Jewish and social justice were so closely connected that I couldn't tell the difference. It was the Jewish commitment that Hillel spoke when he said, the entire Torah comes down to saying, that which is hateful to you, do not do to others. And all the rest is commentary. Now go out and learn. That's the tradition that we come out of and the part of the Jewish values that we promote. It was the tradition and those values that led me to join the civil rights movement in 1960 in support of the sit-ins in the South, and then also to join in Freedom Summer in 1964 as one of the Northern students who were recruited to support the courageous work of African American in Mississippi who were struggling for the right to vote. And you all know about that summer, in part because the three young volunteers, Andrew Goodman, James Chaney, and Michael Schwerner, were killed at the hands of the Ku Klux Klan. It seemed hopeless. But because we organized and elected leadership that believed in greater civil rights and the freedom to vote, within a year, we won a Voting Rights Act. It's those values that led me to create an underground abortion service before Roe we called Jane. And in a time when even 3 people talking about abortion was a conspiracy to commit a felony, the women of Jane created a caring community and themselves performed 11,000 safe abortions. It's that tradition that led me to connect with Bend the Arc. As Dr. Martin Luther King said, as you well know, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And it's up to us to do the bending. It's also up to us to do as Michelle Obama said, and do something. It's what leads you to have this call tonight, and then take from this call to moving into action when our freedoms are under attack. It's what led me to join the Kamala Harris for president and Tim Walz for vice president, to join the campaign as the director of progressive and grassroots outreach. It's what leads me to support their call for a new way forward, the call for opportunity for all people. We need to know what they're for, to not just get by, but to get ahead, to invest in housing for renters without a limit, with a limit on the percentage that landlords can charge for rent increases, and a $20,000 boost for new homeowners, to lower costs on prescription drugs, to stop price gouging we see on groceries, to make the wealthiest pay their fair share, to provide a new $6,000 child credit for families with newborn children, and to turn the page on the hatred and division and support for all our people instead. It's such a contrast to what Donald Trump is proposing, whose lies divide us or try to divide us with hate and chaos. Just imagine attacking immigrants, saying they're eating their pets because of what he heard on TV. And that's leading to real world violence now in Ohio and Colorado. We stand with them, with those people under attack. Trump won't condemn the violence of January 6th when he tried to undermine an election that he knew he lost, or he's proud of those abortion bans that threatened the lives of so many. This election offers a stark contrast between moving ahead and moving backward, between bending the arc toward justice or breaking that arc. It really is up to us. It's not just about this one year or even this one election, but what we can do in the future. That's how we think about it as organizers, as progressives, as Bend the Arc. The election is still likely to be close. It seems almost impossible, but Kamala Harris is still the underdog. But the enthusiasm is growing. And if we do the work, if we make the calls, do the canvassing, spread the message, engage those who are not yet engaged, persuade those who are not yet persuaded, and mobilize those into the fight for the future, then we really can bend the arc. Tomorrow, Progressives for Harris have a call at 8 p.m. and I'll send the link so you can join us with Stacey Abrams to talk about election essentials and democracy and what that means for the fight. We have regular phone banks. We have canvassing. You can go to states. For those with experience, you might even be able to run a field office. There are so many roles, so many ways to be involved. We can bend this arc. And when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. And when Bend the Arc fights, and we're all together, we can win. Thank Bend the Arc for all you've done, all we'll do together. We hope to celebrate our victories when we do something. Thank you all.
Thank you, Heather. When we fight, we win. And when we bend the arc toward justice, we do it for all of us. And with that, Jamie Beran is going to take us home tonight. Again, my friend, my teacher, co-worker, colleague, and really, really true, deep friend for a long time. It's really a delight to be able to see you here tonight and for you to share some words with our amazing community. Jamie.
Thank you, Ginna. Hi, everyone. It is so incredible to be here tonight. First, I just have to say, how about these speakers? Oh my gosh, this has just been so phenomenal and inspiring and just everything we could have possibly hoped for. And that is because we know what we are talking about here tonight, folks, because we have some work to do and we have reasons to do it to build the beautiful future that we all deserve. I also want to thank my phenomenal staff team who put this together and all of you who took time out of your Sunday nights to join us from across the country in this critical moment. It has really been an energizing evening together. And so for those of you who are new to Bend the Arc, welcome. I am our CEO, and I am so proud to see our community show up tonight and in this election. Bend the Arc is fighting for a United States that is free from white supremacy, anti-Semitism, and racism, where every person is able to thrive. And while we know that this election is not the be-all end-all in the fight to build a multiracial democracy where we all are thriving, we also know how dangerous a second Trump administration would be, not only to our neighbors and our partners, but to our Jewish community as well. As you've seen here tonight, Jews exist at every identity intersection. Our community includes Jews of color, immigrants, LGBTQ Jews, Jews with disabilities, allies of all identities, and so much more. And so we have to build the broadest based coalition possible to push back against MAGA authoritarians and make it possible to build the democracy that we all deserve. So as we have asked you so many times tonight, I'm going to ask you again, please commit to taking action. Please sign up for volunteer shifts. Please keep donating money. We've already raised over $4,000 on this call. Let's get to 5, let's get to 10. We're so thrilled and grateful for your contribution so far, and we would love to see more. I made a gift myself tonight. And talk to your friends and family members about doing the same. This is not about one single race or one person. Elections determine who our leaders are and what views have the power in the next several years to enact their agenda. We are picking who we want to fight for our policies with. And so our organizing between now and the election is critical, and our organizing does not and cannot stop in November. We're working to elect Kamala Harris and to help Democrats hold the Senate and take the House. And our work is going to continue year-round to fight for justice. We know that the center of our country has been pulled to the right as the MAGA movement has continued to rise over the last 10 years. And it is our work as a progressive movement to fight for the policies we need, no matter who is in office. And so whoever is in the White House, Bend the Arc, will be working for community safety measures that actually keep us safe rather than carceral solutions. We reject the tough on crime frame. We need to be smart on safety. We believe in investing in a moral budget that prioritizes people, mental health, housing, reproductive services, education, and more, and not in more militarization and policing. We reject enforcement-only policies on immigration. We're going to fight for immigration justice. And we reject the ongoing criminalization of and racism against immigrants, like we saw in Ohio this week, and the militarization of our border communities. As a senator, Kamala Harris was a champion on this issue, and we believe her administration could move under pressure from effective organizing by us and our partners around immigration. We believe in ending the conflict in Gaza, and while Bend the Arc is a domestic-focused organization, we know that the conflict in Israel and Gaza continues to have significant domestic impacts, including within this election cycle. We really hope that the Harris campaign listens to the majority of Democratic voters who want her to secure a ceasefire and return of all hostages and captives. And we also know that the US needs to be willing to stop providing offensive weapons to the Israeli military to reach those aims, for the sake of everyone in the region and for democracy here at home. And we believe in organizing for the long haul. We're going to be there after this election. We're going to be there on November 8th, 9th, and 10th. We're going to be there on January 20th in 2026 and beyond. And we're going to keep building together with our progressive partners so that we can get out of the cycle of every election being an existential threat of MAGA and back to the business of passing policies that actually make people's lives better. To quote our friends at the Working Families Party, we are in a block and build moment. We're working to block a second Trump administration and to build the future we believe in. And in this cycle, demonstrating that there is a critical mass of American Jews still and always who will organize and vote for multiracial democracy is more important than ever before. As bad faith actors continue to use fear and isolation to pull Jews to the right, and as anti-Semitism is being used to undermine democratic norms and values. Bend the Arc is training our partners in the progressive movement, in our base and elected officials in how to talk about anti-Semitism like we believe we can end it together so that we can. And toward that end, we want to invite you to another convening, another gathering, a critical conversation on how we fight anti-Semitism now in a solidarity framework. It is next Thursday evening, September 26th. We're going to have more incredible speakers and thinkers in our movement and allies in this work, and there should be a link in the chat for you to RSVP. Bend the Arc Jewish Action is fighting for community safety, to create a multiracial democracy where everyone has what they need to live and thrive. So join us so that we can build that society together between now and Election Day and months and years ahead. On your screen, you should be able to see 2 links, which are in the chat. Again, please go to bendthearc.us/Kamala to donate to her campaign and to all the progressive candidates we are supporting down the ballot. As we've mentioned, we know that every dollar counts, and if every person on this call and who RSVP'd tonight gave $18, we could raise more than $10,000. So please give what you can, and thank you again so much to those who have. And we know that not everyone can give, and that is okay. And there are so many options to get involved and volunteer your time. So go to juiceforkamala.com and sign up for that phone banking shift to get out the vote in key states and districts that will decide the election in November. We would love to reach our goal of 500 signups for volunteer shifts tonight as a result of this call. All of Bend the Arc's phone banks begin with a space for a covenant together, an intent that Rabbi Brous set so beautifully at the beginning of our call together, that are led by volunteers like you. And then we join the Harris Walls campaign phone banks together as a group of Jews and allies. We know that the presidency is critical, and it is only one of the seats of power in this country we need to win to achieve comprehensive, lasting change. So between our chapters and our PAC, we are involved in 30 plus federal races, and we plan to organize 2,000 shifts of people reaching out to 250,000 voters or more, and you can help us meet those goals. So thank you again for going to these links to fund our candidates and to power our efforts to talk to voters in the most important districts and states. As you know, the links are on your screen. And more importantly, thank you again for being here tonight and for believing in the future that we are building together.